All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to dig into a story that's really less about lines of code and way more about corporate warfare, raw ambition, and an operating system that was literally built to be a weapon. This is the amazing story of OSF-1.
It sounds like something straight out of science fiction, doesn't it? But, in the world of high-tech, the battles for market dominance are very, very real. We're about to explore one of the biggest conflicts in computing history, a time when the entire future of the digital world was hanging in the balance. Okay, let's set the scene. The late 1980s. This was the era of what everyone called the Unix wars. See, Unix was this incredibly powerful, super flexible operating system that everybody wanted a piece of. The company that could define the standard for Unix would basically hold the keys to the kingdom, the future of servers, workstations, you name it. It was a massive prize.
So the battle lines were drawn, and they were crystal clear. On one side, you had the old guard, the incumbents, AT&T and their partner Sun Microsystems. They controlled the dominant version of Unix. But on the other side, you had this powerful alliance of their biggest competitors. We're talking IBM, DEC, and HP, who all banded together to form something called the Open Software Foundation, or OSF. And they were not about to let AT&T just dictate the future without a serious fight.
When the OSF was created back in 1988, it was basically a declaration of war. Their mission wasn't just to compete, no. It was to create a completely new path forward, a path that they controlled. This wasn't just about grabbing market share. For them, it was about technological freedom.
The OSF's strategy was pretty brilliant, and it had three main parts. First, build a better, more powerful Unix. Second, and this was a total masterstroke, make absolutely sure it contained zero, and I mean zero, code that AT&T could claim was theirs. And third, make their version the new, undisputed standard for everyone. This was a direct shot at AT&T's dominance. And every army needs its ultimate weapon. For the Open Software Foundation, that weapon was a state-of-the-art operating system they called OSF-1. This was it. This was the piece of tech they were betting the whole farm on. Not to be truly independent, the OSF knew they couldn't just copy the old design. No way. They had to build something that was fundamentally different, starting right from its very core.
Their solution was something called the Mach-Kernel, which came out of Carnegie Mellon. Mach was a microkernel, and this choice wasn't just technical. It was a genius legal and strategic move. By using Mach as their foundation, they could build their entire system without touching a single line of AT&T's proprietary Unix code. So this design was completely different. Think of a traditional OS kind of like one giant building where everything happens together. A microkernel is more like a tiny central command post with a bunch of smaller, independent outposts. The core itself is tiny, only handling the absolute essentials. Everything else, drivers, file systems, all that stuff, runs as its own separate program. This made the whole system potentially way more stable, more secure, and a lot more flexible than the competition.
So they built this incredibly advanced new weapon. But the big question is, how did OSF-1 actually do out there in the real world? Did the Alliance actually win the war with it? Well, the answer is, it's complicated.
The results were really a mixed bag. For two of the founding members, it was a huge success. DEC adopted it as the native 64-bit OS for their super powerful Alpha systems, and IBM used it as the foundation for its mainframe OS. But for others, like HP and Apple, their plans to use OSF-1 just fizzled out. They were either withdrawn or canceled.
And that right there, that really is its most enduring legacy. If OSF-1 is remembered for one thing, it's for being the high-performance 64-bit engine that powered DEC's legendary Alpha servers and workstations. I mean, those things were absolute beasts in their day. Which, of course, brings us to the final chapter. If it was so advanced and had these major successes, why did it just disappear? Why didn't OSF-1 become the standard that its creators dreamed it would be?
The answer is one of the greatest ironies in all of tech history. The war didn't end with some climatic battle. It just stopped. In 1994, AT&T sold off its Unix assets. And just like that, the entire reason the Open Software Foundation was created, that great rival they had built OSF-1 to defeat, was gone, vanished.
And with no enemy left to fight, the Alliance's primary mission was basically over. That very same year, the OSF officially stopped funding any new development for OSF-1. The weapon had served its purpose. The war was over. But the story doesn't quite end there. The technology was so solid that its descendants, like DEC's Tru64 UNIX, actually lived on for nearly 2 more decades.
Can you believe that? The final version was supported all the way until 2012. The ghost of OSF1 haunted the machine for a very, very long time.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. We've just seen how a huge corporate conflict directly shaped a piece of technology. So think about this. If AT&T had never sold Unix, if that war had raged on for another decade, is it possible that the DNA of OSF/1, with its advanced microkernel design, would be at the core of the operating systems that we all use today? It's a pretty compelling what-if from the wild history of computing.